Hello my lovelies, I'm Chris from TechSpert and today we're going to be checking out the fresh new Vivo V29. It's a mid-range mobile for camera fans boasting some clever optics, including a smart aura flash, as well as some super trippy colourful designs. So I'm going to take you on a full tour of the Vivo V29, including thoroughly testing out that camera tech as well as the gaming chops, etc. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, in case you're as confused as I was, apparently there wasn't a Vivo V28. The previous Vivo V series smartphone was the V27, which I reviewed about 6 months ago. Sometimes Chinese manufacturers will skip a number for superstitious reasons, like the number 4 for instance, because it's quite close to their word for death. So maybe 28's the same, maybe that's quite close to the Chinese word for piss flaps. So anyway, what do you get bundled in the box besides the Vivo V29? Well, you've got yourself a proper beefy 80-watt flash charge adapter, USB cable, and yes, you do get yourself a protective condom case as well to keep your Vivo V29 looking box fresh. And besides the quick start guide shenanigans, that's everything that you get chucked in the box. Alright, so the Vivo V29 all set up and ready for action. And the first thing you should notice is the rather sleek design, because as usual with Vivo smartphones, it's suitably skinny, pleasingly curvy. Certainly an attractive wee mofo for a mid-range mobile, quite similar design to some rivals like the Oppo Reno 10. Like that Oppo blower, the Vivo V29 is pleasingly lightweight for something that's almost really 6.8 inches. It weighs just 186 grams. Like the Reno 10, that edging is constructed from plastic, sadly, but there's very little of it, so it doesn't really matter. Around the back is where you'll find the real action though. Check out that rather dazzling arse. You've actually got a selection of different colours for the Vivo V29. This is the peak blue model. This is apparently inspired by the mighty grandeur of mountain peaks. It inspires one to keep climbing towards their dreams as the stars lie in reach, waiting to be grasped. That's according to the reviewer's guide anyway, so basically just don't stress about how few people actually achieve their life goals. Keep dreaming big, kiddo. You can also grab the Vivo V29 in starry purple, a dazzling display where dense clusters of stars paint the sky in radiant glow, while sparser formations glitter in mesmerizing allure. Whatever that means. I definitely want a big old baggie of whatever these dudes were smoking. There's also velvet red, featuring a bit of colour changing fluorite AG glass. Apparently that red tone represents fine wine reserved for those who pursue only the best quality. Got to admit, I'm more of a £5 budget down Aldi kind of guy. I'm still a step up from my student days where I used to toss back 99p bottles of Lambrini. And then last up there's Noble Black. And this doesn't get any kind of fancy pants description. I guess the designers must have run out of the wacky backy by this point. I gotta say, Vivo has nailed that design as usual. That speckled back casts ever-changing patterns as you move it about the place. As you can see there, you've got kind of a funky wave design going on, and it even stretches across the camera chassis. It is mesmerizing stuff, and more importantly, the Vivo V29's back end doesn't get all smudgy despite rocking a glossy, shiny surface, even if you're TikToking while consuming a bucket of fried chicken. Or rather, it does get smudgy, but you can't really notice because that crazy design does a fantastic job of masking all of the fingerprints and greasy goodness. And so far, even though it's not constructed from the hardiest materials, the Vivo V29 seems reasonably rugged. You've got a pre-installed screen protector slapped on there, and also it's IP68 water and dust resistant, which is still reasonably rare for a mid-range mobile. Although the Pixel 7a, the Samsung Galaxy A54, etc. come close with their IP67 rating. Now software, and the Vivo V29 is running a good bit of Android 13 with the FunTouch OS launcher slapped on top. Thankfully this doesn't mess too much with Google's status quo, so you've still got an apps drawer, you've still got the notifications drawer which can be dragged down from anywhere. It'll certainly look and feel familiar to any Android fans, but FunTouch does add quite a few bonus features on top of it, including a bugger ton of customization, so everything from that fingerprint icon to the charging animation that pops up when you bung a cable in its bottom. Pretty much everything can be personalized. You've also got some pretty standard extras like the always on display, quite a variety of different styles that you can choose between there to suit your own personal tastes. And gamers will love the ultra game mode as well, which I will bang on about later when I'm talking about performance. Unfortunately, Vivo isn't quite as committed to updating its smartphones as the likes of Samsung and OnePlus, so while it has committed to 3 years of software updates for its X series flagship smartphones, it doesn't offer any such promises here on the V series. But thankfully the Vivo V29 doesn't come loaded with crapware. You've got a few little bits of Vivo's own on here, a themes app, a music app, etc. But that's pretty much it. No Facebook, no LinkedIn, no booking.bloody.com, thank God. The only real problem I've had with the Vivo V29 in my short time with it is the fact that I don't seem to get app notifications when I'm connected to a mobile network. They only seem to flood in whenever I'm on Wi-Fi. And that's despite the fact that I've gone into the settings and locked all of my messaging and email apps in place. They don't shut down in the background, they're constantly active. Perhaps it's some weird setting that I haven't yet found. Perhaps it's just some damn dirty bug. Either way, it's kind of irritating. And as for the storage, where you got a choice for 128 or 256 gigs with the Vivo V29. Sadly, not expandable via micro SD memory card, though. You've only got space in that SIM tray for a pair of SIMs. So now let's have a shafty at that 6.78 inch AMOLED display. It's another cracker as usual from Vivo with its mid-ranges, and the Vivo V29 has had a bit of a resolution boost versus the V27. It's now sharper than Full HD at 2800 by 1260. So images are stunningly crisp, whether you're checking out the photos that you've shot on this thing or just kicking back with a bit of Netflix or whatever. You can certainly see some impressive levels of detail when you're watching my baldy bonce. Every little wrinkle and sag, yum. Bit of HDR10 Plus when streaming supported content. Those blacks are inky black, gorgeous stuff. And only a dinky wee selfie cam orifice to mildly intrude on the action when you do go full screen. And despite the fact this display curves around those edges, thankfully the screen responsiveness doesn't seem to be balked up even when you're clutching it super tight. As you can see there, you can still swipe and poke your way around your apps, no worries whatsoever. The maximum brightness is absolutely eye-searing on the Vivo V29, so certainly I've had no issues seeing what I'm doing when I'm outdoors, even in bright sunlight. And you got 120Hz maximum refresh as well, can scale up automatically with supported content. Sadly, however, the Vivo V29 does not sport a stereo speaker setup. It is just that bottom firing speaker that spaffs out audio. Let's boost up the volume, see what we got. And it measures just 15 mils at its thickest point. So this thing can pretty much slip into any backpack going. Even my kid can lug this around in a weenie Disney backpack. So it's certainly quite loud on that top volume, and the audio isn't too tinny or anything either, but it is a bit of a disappointment to not have that stereo arrangement. So now let's check out that performance. And while the Vivo V27s were powered by MediaTek chipsets, here in the Vivo V29, the brains of the operation is Qualcomm's Snapdragon 778G. And that's a capable mid-range chipset. It's powered tons of Android blows in the past, including the original Nothing phone, for instance. And it's backed here by either 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. I've got the 8 gig review model. And so unsurprisingly, I found the everyday performance so far has been absolutely fine. If you want to do a good bit of gaming, no worries, the Vivo V29 can handle basically anything you'll find on the Play Store, although if you are playing more demanding titles like Genshin Impact, well, don't expect to run them on the highest graphics settings with a super creamy fluid frame rate. When I tried boosting it to the higher graphics settings, unfortunately I did see quite a few judders. That frame rate did drop quite significantly during big battles. But leave it on the lower graphics settings, you'll be absolutely fine, and the Vivo V29 can happily handle the likes of Free Fire, PUBG, anything like that. When I've been gaming for the best part of an hour, I did find that the Vivo V29's back end did start to get a little bit warm up here towards the top near the camera chassis where the chipset is presumably housed. We're not talking absolute meltdown or anything though, the game still played absolutely fine, the phone didn't show any signs of struggling. And FunTouch OS also adds in a bunch of gaming tools, including a performance booster mode, very handy for the Genshins. You can also block notifications, record the action, all kinds of stuff. Now, if you're the kind of person who likes to fiddle with their phone all day long, well, the Vivo V29's battery life should please you greatly. You've only got a 4,600 mAh capacity cell stuffed inside of this thing, so not the biggest around, but it's certainly good enough to last you all day long. Even with my usual 5 to 6 hours of screen on time a day minimum, with lots of camera play, all that good stuff, I didn't come close to draining this thing before I was all tucked up with Teddy. And I was surprised by how slowly the battery drained, even when I was playing the likes of Genshin Impact with that performance mode enabled on the higher graphics settings. It's kind of nuts. And then on top of that, you've got the 80 watt fast wired charging as well, so when it is fully drained, it'll be back up to full in a jiffy. Although sadly there is no wireless charging, that's still a feature that's only on a select number of mid-range mobiles. Now, as I already mentioned, one of the highlights of these Vivo V series smartphones is usually the optics. So let's finish this unboxing video with a squint at that camera tech. You've got yourself a 50 megapixel quad Byyyeeeee primary camera with optical image stabilization, backed by ultra wide angle and monochrome shooters. Now, the camera app won't be too surprising to anyone who's used Vivo smartphones before. They are quite dense when it comes to the features, the toggles. You've got loads of stuff to play around with here. So for instance, in your full auto mode, you do have several other features you can play around with, including natural color. This does exactly what you'd expect. You can disable that if you prefer a bit of a boost to those tones. Personally, I prefer leaving that on. And here's some test shots that I've snapped over the past 24 hours or so, and I've got to say I'm perfectly happy with my everyday snaps that were churned out by the Vivo V29. Ambient pics can be a wee bit grainy, but in decent light you will get some sharp, detail-packed photos. Vivid subjects in particular look rather ruddy good. They come out really bright and bold without appearing artificially enhanced. And moving subjects won't be blurred as long as that lighting is decent. I also found that the Vivo V29 was remarkably good in HDR situations, countering strong backlighting with impressive skill. I could barely even see this statue of Byyyeeeee because of the sun being right behind him, and yet here he is in the photo clear as day. And my other pics featuring a surprisingly bright blue British sky also came out well. No disappointing saturation to ruin the image. Portrait shots generally come out well, nice sexy bit of bokeh action. And while there's no zoom lens on the Vivo V29, you can crop in a bit with a pinch of your fingers and still get quite crisp results, as long as you don't go too mental obviously. And then at night you do have that aura light flash which you can activate at any time. It's a similar setup to before, just a bit brighter than the previous generation. The idea here is that the light can automatically get warmer or cooler to suit the environment and your subject, to make skin tones and other tones look as natural as possible. And if you want to, you can also manually fiddle about with it on the screen. And yeah, the aura light does a pretty good job of lighting up your subject even in extreme darkness without completely bollocksing up their appearance. Although it doesn't always result in natural looking colours on the auto mode. Sometimes you will have to tweak it a bit yourself. As for that 8 ultra wide angle shooter, well, it's pretty basic stuff. There's a clear drop in those detail levels in these snaps, and high contrast scenes are a problem, although at least the colour reproduction isn't completely balked. And the Vivo V29 does a pretty good job when it comes to shooting video as well. You can capture up to 4K resolution footage as you're wandering about the place with decent stabilization so you can move and shoot, no worries. The visuals stay nice and crisp. Again, it works pretty well in high contrast situations, and the audio pickup is nice and clear from all directions. It's not quite up there with the Samsungs and the iPhones of the world, but it's pretty bloody good. And then last up, around the front of the Vivo V29, you've got yourself a 50 megapixel selfie shooter with autofocus. And while this isn't as capable or as impressive as the rear camera setup, it's absolutely fine for simple shareable selfies. And you've got a bit of screen flash action if you are trying to shoot in low light conditions. And you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage using that front facing camera as well. It's pretty damn good for your Skype and your Zoom and all that malarkey as well. The audio pickup again nice and clear, even if you move a fair distance away from the phone. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a delicious wee nutshell is the Vivo V29 and its rather clever camera tech. So definitely some solid optics for this sort of price point. A worthy rival to the likes of the Pixel 7a, and the rest of the phone I rather like as well. The performance is pretty bloody good. That battery life is excellent. Got some strong media chops and everything as well. And of course, that rather stunning design. It's really just the wee bit of FunTouch jank and the fact that you're not really guaranteed as strong a software update schedule as the likes of a Samsung, a Google or a OnePlus that really detracts from an overall solid package. So that's what I reckon of the Vivo V29 anyway. It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all the usual YouTube shit, and have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.